This episode is brought to you by Web3 Enabler. Check out our app Blockchain Payments on the Salesforce App Exchange. Blockchain Payments brings cryptocurrencies to Salesforce. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real World Blockchain Podcast, where you can learn how your business can thrive next year, next decade, next century, thanks to cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, and Web3 in general. I'm Gauthier Lamotte, your host, and I'm blessed to have my two partners in crime today, Zoe Brederman and Niles Lee Smith. Hi, guys.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. Today's news are a bit technical and a bit emotionally loaded, so that's a special episode. Vitalik Buterin, the first news of the day, is proposing an Ethereum Gas Model Overhaul. So this was something that we have been waiting for quite a long time. Ethereum was extremely innovative when it came out, but because there were new generation blockchains, of course, it could benefit from an overhaul. Guys, what do you know about that one?
Yeah, so right now, like Ethereum is using two different, I guess, like we'll call them models for gas payments. Mm-hmm. One is the transaction and one is for storage that was introduced, I don't know, like a few months ago. I believe it was I-559, which we call blobs. And that was primarily for roll-ups and layer twos to go and have their own little special place.
So to store data
on Ethereum. And now he is proposing through EIP 7706 to have something that is now a third option for call data, where now it's almost the inverse, right? Is that like one is putting information onto Ethereum and the other is pulling it out.
Allow me to ask the question with a bit of fear in my voice. Does that mean that we're having a third transaction model, or does that mean that this... Okay, so this is not going to replace the two previous ones, right?
This is an inclusion.
Okay. Well, let's see how it turns out. And if I remember correctly, that means that there will be a unique charge to data transferred during transactions, but executing the contract is not going to be the same gas model. That's going to add a bit of complexity, but that's also going to be probably cheaper in the long run for the users. So
yeah, I mean, like, to be honest, right now we've just seen gas prices tanking. I'm looking at Etherscan. It's 6 Gwei, May 17, 406 Boston. Like, this is not something we've seen in years. And what's really interesting to me is that now Ethereum, through this model, is also suggesting that they are the data availability layer. And I think like last week we were talking about EigenLayer, and they launched their own data availability layer. And like Ethereum is saying, don't worry about it. We got it covered.
Let's see how it works. Let's see how it turns out. One thing we can notice, though, is that Vitalik, Ethereum's founder, has always been very critical about his own work. I must admit, he's one of the most honest founders in the game. He's very, very eager to say, okay, this doesn't work. This is half-baked. This is clumsy. We have to find another solution. And he's the first product he's saying that about is his own product. So he's very honest about the things that can be overhauled. And he's been saying that a few years ago, saying, oh, we need a new gas fees model, but it'll probably take 20 years in order to have something interesting. But I don't think he's delusional by saying this, because this is still a maturing technology. So yes, of course, that's half-baked, and whenever you have something that looks cool and improved, it becomes half-baked the next year, and there were other things that were released in the meantime. So I admire his... in French, we say his hard head. Basically, he's able to headbutt through walls and to keep going. Yeah. I like that. All right. Second news of the day. Do you guys know about a proposal from the SEC? We're always talking about them, and every time we're hearing these three letters, it's always to give me goosebumps and not in the good way. So their SAB 121 proposal. It's a proposal from the SEC about cryptocurrency custody. So Niles, can you please explain for our listeners what cryptocurrency custody is about?
So just quickly, like, this isn't a proposal, this is a policy. And what the SEC has, I guess we'll call mandated, is that like banks can't custody or hold cryptocurrencies for whatever reason. Gary Gensler, come talk to me. I think that we have some things to say. But what's really exciting is that this week, not only the House, but also the Senate has voted to repeal this like custody policy that has been put forth. And we're still going to have to see it be approved by Biden. But this is something where it was bipartisan. And it just shows us that like people want this. Congress wants this.
When I hear that, I'm thinking, where's the catch? Because, well, this is so some critics said this is a deterrence to investment banks, from large-scale crypto custody services. So basically, exchanges are using a kind of crony capitalism move in order to just deter the progress of investment banks on the stage on the world blockchain stage, and some other are saying no, this is a great news because that means that people cannot seize your money too much, and then cryptocurrencies stay somehow decentralized, even though it's hard to say they're decentralized now the way they were 14 years ago. But that seems like a very complicated ethical debate and a complicated business debate. So I'm thinking, what's the catch? And what are the hidden interests of people who are voting for all the people who are voting against? And President Joe Biden is probably not going to read that because, like most presidents, at the moment, he's got a lot to think about. So he's probably have one of his advisors think about that.
I mean, he's already said that he's going to veto. We will see if Congress will override.
So let's see, indeed. But that's always the problem as well.
Yeah.
Does he veto because
he's been blowing?
Is he vetoing because he's been advised to do it, or is he vetoing because he's got a personal stance, or his whole political team has got a stance in this direction? It's kind of hard to say. So.
Right. Yeah. All the reasoning is where it's ambiguous and interesting.
And it's interesting because some other people, notably the Blockchain Association in the US, said that, and I quote, the threat of a presidential veto denies the fact that there is a growing awareness among the public, the voting public, particularly young people, that crypto is something our elected officials should care about. So there are many different political stances in this regard here.
Yeah, and I think this is something that actually brings crypto into the forefront for the upcoming presidential election. And now it is a wedge issue where another candidate for president has endorsed blockchain and crypto. And if you were a single issue voter on crypto, this is the defining factor, right? And now all of a sudden, we wouldn't have been talking about this 4 years ago, 8 years ago. Here we are.
Yeah, the good thing is that we're talking about cryptocurrencies in Congress, and now the question is not, is it going to be legal? Is it something legit or not? The question is, how can it be made more legit? And I don't think any of the two presidential candidates that you guys are going to have in the U.S. are going to change that. That basically they're going to debate over how they want to regulate that, but certainly not whether or not this is becoming mainstream. The mainstream era has begun. That's it. It's here.
We're here.
Yeah, we've been here. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's actually a wonderful news. That's not that can be a bad news for some actors or good news for some others because they obviously have a feud here, a business feud. But that's a wonderful news for the whole ecosystem in general. And now, usually I'm kind of cynical and joyful when I'm talking with a sense of irony of the lawsuit of the week. But this week's legal action is kind of flabbergasting. So, have you guys heard about Tornado Cash?
Yep. And I know that this is a system. It's called a mixer, where people send in their ETH. Mm-hmm. It's a smart contract on chain that then obfuscates who is the sender and like when it comes out of their smart contract that it's not the same person who put it in.
For the record, in August 2023, so something like almost a year ago, a Texas judge had validated in August sanctions from the Department of Treasury in the United States against Tornado Cash because, basically Tornado Cash was blacklisted, and that means U.S. citizens and U.S. companies were forbidden to use these services because of the potential money laundering issues. And so now we're learning that members of the Tornado Cash team are facing quite significant prison time. We're not talking about the 4 months of like a symbolic slap on the wrist, because if you give me if you give me huge dividends, I'm okay to face 4 months in prison.
CZ.
Yeah. For $1 million in dividends, I'm completely okay to go to prison for 4 months. That's not a cool period in prison, but that's manageable. But for example, the Tornado Cash crypto mixer is facing 64 months in prison. His name is Alexei Pertsev, and Zoe, I think his associate is still to be sentenced, right?
I believe so, yeah.
All right. So the ruling happened in the Netherlands, and Pertsev was arrested, 2 years ago, and the thing, the lawsuit is still ongoing. And in the meantime, we're also learning about another legal action. So 2 in the same week. And this huge legal action here is about 2 brothers who were MIT students. And these guys were charged for exploiting Ethereum. They exploited a blockchain bug, and they stole $25 million in crypto. And they are facing up to 20 years in prison. So when you hear about...
just like very quickly, I just want to point out that this was not a blockchain bug.
Okay.
It was through Flashbots, which is the issuer of MEV Boost, where in the mempool, everybody is putting their transactions. It must be ordered, but this is not a Ethereum exploit.
Oh, interesting. So would you develop that a bit more for the listeners?
Yeah. When you are making a transaction for Ethereum, you are putting this into what is called the mempool, where you, me, Zoe are all sending something, and it has not actually settled or been sent to the Ethereum blockchain yet. These transactions have to be bundled before they are put in as a block, right? Like the block is a bundle of these transactions. What these 2 kids did is that they found an exploit in Flashbot's MEV Boost, where MEV is what is called maximum extractable value, by getting money or value out of the ordering of these transactions in a block. they found that if you could go and send a not illegal, but like an invalid block, these transactions would be revealed. So they use this knowledge to be able to go and front running bot in MEV boost to make this money. Like, this was not on chain. This was an exploit of a bot that I believe it's over 90% of block builders use, which is through flashbots.
Fascinating. And so, what do you guys think about these two cases? And also the size of the potential sentences.
Well, one thing I'll say about, exploitation of vulnerable software in general is that, there are parts of the world that are still behind in accepting properly disclosed vulnerability exploitation. So, for example, like an ethical hacker disclosing it ethically. So considering that that's already behind, I imagine that part of the reason for this long sentence is that they're trying to disincentivize people from using it for their own benefits and not ethically, because they're really trying to drive home this point in all types of software. And obviously, Web3, DeFi related software has additional implications that directly relate to release of funds, and so they even want to disincentivize that type of behavior even more. Because again, yeah, I mean, it's just like an ongoing discussion, and they want to make examples of the people who try to take advantage of these systems.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge penalty in order to discourage any other person willing to try the same to pull off the same trick. What do you think, Niles?
Yeah, I mean, like, this really just comes down to the fundamentals of, is code law? And does the code where it lives matter? And if we can go and have MEV, and that is an accepted like price to pay when you're using these like dApps, then fine, But like, now all of a sudden, if this code is not on chain and through a third party, which is like, for now, like flashbots, does that change things? And I think that this is something where we're seeing this guy going to prison for 5 years for putting out code. And then we've also seen in the past the Mango Markets exploit, where that was again something that the code was used completely as intended, but drained the vaults, also go to prison. And like, if code is not law, and if like this doesn't matter, like that's just a question as an industry and as a people we have to look at and decide, because like, these kids didn't do anything like pulling money out of somebody's wallet. They didn't mug anyone, but they did exploit code. And that like could be seen as something much more malicious than just going and creating something that other people use. And now I'm referencing Tornado Cash again, that like just so happens to be used by illicit activities.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between basically crafting something that you didn't use maliciously, but that some other people used maliciously, and doing something that was malicious on purpose. So
yeah, I mean, like, they didn't lie. It's not like they went and tried to go and sell apples for twice the value because the guy was blind and they took a 20 when it was like $10. It was a bot. Like, this is all online. This is something that it is code. But now that it's not on chain, and maybe even if it is on chain, like, what are we as a society?
That is that's something that also complicated by the fact that they obviously knew that something was wrong.
That's true.
I mean, naively exploiting a bug is something, but then some things in their file played against the kids.
Like wire fraud and like extradition. So like they knew.
Yeah. They Googled many things. Usually when there's a case, even it depends on the country, of course, but even when there's a case of murder or something like that, they don't always try to find your research attempts in the past few weeks. But when there's $25 million involved, or when there's a super brutal murder, then yes, they're going to ask for your search history. And for the listeners, know if you are erasing your search history, this is not how they will do that. They will ask your internet access provider, or they will ask Google to tell them exactly what you've been looking for. Naughty. And so,
incognito does not mean that it's private.
Yeah, exactly. And so basically, they looked at that, and what they found during the prosecution was that they perfectly knew that something was not super legal-ish, because they looked at the countries that would not extradite them, and they looked at all the possible ways to find a top-notch. I think there was also top-notch cryptocurrency expert, cryptocurrency lawyer writing that. So it didn't play in their favor. That's a complicated debate, because then is it still not abuse when you know that it could be interpreted as abuse, even though you play the naive card? So that's very complicated. And then again, that may seem like a harsh punishment if it's hard to find who's been suffering from the prejudice.
I mean, I believe that it is, because we see companies like Robinhood who make money off of payment for order flows.
Yeah.
Where the reason why they're able to go and offer zero fees for your trades is because they are selling your trades to other companies.
Indeed.
And this is essentially MEV.
Yeah.
In the traditional finance world, which, by the way, is illegal in the EU and has been illegal in the UK for several years now. I don't know if this is any different. What these kids did is that they just exploited something that, sure, somebody might have gotten hurt, but financially, but that really all they're doing is using the system to their benefits. And like, why are companies allowed to use the exact same methods? And
well, the companies don't exploit vulnerabilities, though.
Because they create them. Robinhood is making money off of you. Citadel is making money off of you. But because when you make a trade, they're going to go and sell before, buy later.
Well, but isn't it that about how they're using this, certain software that's that's functioning as it's supposed to be, rather than exploiting a vulnerability? Because exploiting a vulnerability is something very specific.
So the thing is, they're basically selling to third parties your trading patterns. This is what they're selling, and this scam here, this bug exploit, is basically about luring people so that the victims would not unknowingly reveal their trading patterns to somebody who normally would not exploit them, and oh shit, that person is going to exploit them. So that's basically that's why the IRS Criminal Investigation Office in New York, that's why they followed the money and tried to understand what happened, and that's how they decided to prosecute the kids, which is
Yeah, I mean,
complicated.
Like, we'll see if like this is illegal, right? Like, if it's illegal, let's define.
And let's make let's make it illegal everywhere, or let's make it legal, and let's not find a scapegoat. Indeed, yeah. In French, we have a word we say two weights, two measurements, saying that there's a difference of treatment. I think in English you would say double standard.
We're still using imperial over here.
So 2 weights, 5 measurements. But that's a very tricky problem. And so you wanted to add something?
Oh no, it just yeah. I mean, technical differences you know, certainly impact these things, but yeah, I mean, it's very thought provoking. You know, where a certain lines drawn.
Well, it also depends on which legal and philosophical system you believe in, and that's kind of arbitrary. We all have our preferences, but is it a consequentialist saying, okay, how many people did get hurt no matter what your intentions were? Or is it the problem of the intent? Like, yes, you didn't kill everybody, but you didn't kill anybody, but you wrote a book saying that that you were planning to do so. Or is it just the virtue of the action, and you have to sanction the action independently of the consequences and the intent? Or a mix of these three philosophical stances that's always a philosophical debate, and law is not something objective. There's always a part of arbitrary. So yes, this is thought-provoking indeed.
Yeah, and apparently code is not law right now. So we'll see, at least not in the US.
Yeah. Stay tuned, dear listeners, because that's typically the kind of cases that sometimes we also have to talk about. It's not always about funny lawsuits or wacky cases and strange new things and jurisprudences. It's not only about technical things to lower gas fees. It's also about all the important concerns and cases that shape the future of this industry. So this is why we're taking the time to talk about that as well.
Yeah, and if I could just like end on a good note, right now, BlockFi users BlockFi, if we remember, it was a company that did loans with crypto, went bankrupt. They are actually now sending out checks.
Yeah.
The payments are happening. And Gemini is coming later in just a few weeks. Like, this is happening. Like, maybe the system sometimes works.
That's pleasant. That's really something pleasant.
Indeed.
Let's see how it turns out in the end. Any last word, guys?
That was mine.
Thank you so much, everyone. I was again blessed to have Zoe and Niles for a great podcast. This was Real World Blockchain. This episode brought to you by Web3 Enablers Blockchain Payments, the only and first payment apps in cryptocurrencies on Salesforce, with many, many, many new things to announce. I'm not announcing it here, but I'm teasing. Next week, we're going to make a huge announcement on Web3 Enablers channel. Stay tuned, because this is going to be huge. We have so many updates about blockchain payments and about our Salesforce app and many other things to announce. So stay tuned, dear listeners. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.